gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? The show starts in 3, 2, 1, go.
Good morning, CaneSport. It's October the 21st, 2022. I'm Gary Ferman, the publisher of CaneSport.com, joined as always by our managing editor, Matt Shodell, as we discuss the news of the day presented by LifeWallet, where the time is now to take charge of your personal health. And the Miami Hurricanes are about 24 hours away from playing Duke in a game, Matt, that I think is going to be tougher than a lot of people think. And, we talk about it quite a bit on the You Bet CaneSport show with Lee Sterling that's on the website today as well. And Lee and I, when we tape that show, we're in agreement that the betting line of 9.5 for points going towards Duke was too high, and that Miami was once again being overvalued. And it's a problem for people that bet on the Canes. Miami's 0-5 this year. If you take the Bethune-Cookman game out of the equation, which really doesn't count, Miami's 0-5 this year against the spread. And now they're going into this Duke game. They're heavy favorites. Haven't gotten your thoughts on this subject yet. Should Miami be 9.5-point favorites in this game?
As you know, Gary, I ignore your whole opening. I'm going to start today with my DNR. My DNR today, it's a very depressing. So yesterday was Basketball Media Day, which is a day I look forward to all year because they serve us lunch. They serve us lunch. Very exciting. Free lunch. Can't beat it. So, we go. I show up when I'm supposed to. I get there for the start of the event, which is some guy named Dan Radakovich. Apparently, nobody's ever heard of him because I was like the only reporter there when he showed up. It was myself, someone from the Herald. That's pretty much it. Someone from a rival network that I guess I won't name. But there was like nobody there. It was bizarre. Like, it's the athletic director who never talks to us. You have a chance to talk to him. I mean, I asked him about the football facilities, but I guess there was nothing he wanted to talk about. Whatever.
At Basketball Media Day, that was the only thing that anybody would have cared about. Yeah.
So whatever. Dan gets in, Dan gets out of there. I'm like, what time's lunch? Oh my God, I have another hour and a half. I go to watch like the women's basketball practice. Katie Meyer talks about how small the ball is and how hard it was to shoot because it's so small.
Let me interrupt you for a minute. I wish I could do a poll right now. How many people are watching this show that knew that the basketball that women's basketball uses for their games is distinctly smaller than the men's basketball? I had never even thought about that for 1 second. Like, I'm used to just seeing women or girls go out and play basketball. I'd never even imagined that their ball is smaller, but it really is. And that was one great revelation of going to women's basketball practice yesterday to just check those. They have a pretty good, decent looking team. But of course, a lot of the interest is coming from the Cavender twins. And the funniest thing, the Cavender twins are knockdown shooters. I mean, these girls can shoot, but they are not real fast now. The rest of the team is considerably faster than the Cavender twins. So that was kind of interesting to see too. But I'm sorry. Go ahead, Matt. So lunch.
Yeah, so Gary was shocked when I informed him the women's ball was smaller. He was shocked when I told him the women's hoop was 6 feet, not 10 feet.
Well, that's nonsense.
He believed me. He believed me. So anyway, I struggle through this basketball practice. Whatever. I'm just biding my time. What time is it? Okay, it's lunchtime. Bam. Sprint over to the media room. Very excited about, and this is what the media gets excited about, okay?
University employees are flocking from all over campus. The word's out that there's free lunch at the basketball arena.
So finally the media shows up. Finally the media shows up en masse, not for Dan Radakovich, but for lunch. And it's all this speculation. Is it going to be the big cheese? One reporter was asking. Someone else thought it was going to be, Jimmy John's. I mean, we were a buzz. This was the most excited the football media people have been, the reporters, since 2001, maybe 2002. And we eagerly burst. We're shoving each other out of the way. We burst into the media room. and sitting in front of us is some sad-looking, like, weird Publix chicken nuggets.
Wait,
even
it was popcorn chicken.
yeah, popcorn, whatever. It looked disgusting. I didn't even touch it.
I had a couple. They were okay.
There was some like pepperoni wrap things that
Those actually were pretty good too. They were like pinwheels. Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't touching that. That looked like I thought that was there by accident. I figured it was probably some sort of food hazard.
Okay. They were all right.
And then they had these like I love Publix sandwiches, but the only Publix sandwiches they had, and it wasn't even that many of them, but like they had ham and then just why I understand there's vegetarians out there, okay? But why is half of the sandwiches that the media relations puts out for the starving artist reporters, just they call it a veggie sandwich, but all it is like lettuce, tomato, and onion on bread. So I was very disappointed in that. The cookies were about the size of the women's basketball, like you couldn't even see them. They were microscopic. So a very disappointing day for Matt Shodell. That's my DNR. The only highlight was that I was able to leave the media room once these people started talking about their personal lives, which was like mind-blowing. I don't need to know everybody's personal business and how wonderful their lives are compared to Gary and my horrible life. So finally, I can't take it anymore. I leave the media room and I go to the security station where it's the only peace and quiet. And guess who I find there who's also left the media room because he couldn't stand it either? Gary Ferman he beat me there. He's smarter than me because he realized earlier than I did.
A few phone calls.
I said to Gary, I said I couldn't take it in there anymore. And Gary says
I already couldn't in there. I had to
Gary says I couldn't take it either. I left way earlier than you. And then the highlight was some woman comes in and thinks that Gary and I are the security guards. She comes in through the doors into the loading dock and she asks us, "Hey, I'm here for the Sesame Street show. Is it okay if I set up over here?" And we're like, "Absolutely, set up over there." And she's like, "Great." And then she leaves and she comes back with what did she have, Gary? What did she bring?
Those funnel cakes.
And then Gary starts asking her, "Can we have some funnel cakes?" And that was the first clue she had that we were not security. And but she just kept going about her business. And that honestly, Sesame Street was the highlight of Basketball Media Day for me because after that, we did some nice interviews. I love the players to death. They're great.
All right, can we get back to the Duke game and the point spread, please?
Well, I think people care more about what I just said than the Duke game, but yeah, whatever. I said yesterday. I told you yesterday. I said Miami's going to win by 3 touchdowns. Like I haven't changed my mind in 24 hours, Gary. So yeah, they'll cover.
All right.
But don't blame me if they don't. Don't come asking for my money. I
will not blame you if they don't.
I'm talking about the fans, the 3 fans watching this.
So today, in addition to looking forward to the Duke game, we continue our midseason reports, which have evaluations which have been going on all week. And today we take a look at 5 Miami Hurricane players that we need to see more of in the final half of the season. And Matt. We could talk about a couple of them here on this show. Everybody can read the story, but one of them that we brought up is Thad Franklin, and that is an interesting subject. Just because you would think that with the injuries at running back, he would be playing more and would be carrying the show. But I think there's a dilemma there for coaches in that he's just not real fast, and the offense kind of plods a little bit with him in there, and they have been they've had Parrish some, they've had Knighton some, although Parrish missed the last game. He has been averaging 4.8 yards a carry this year. I mean, Henry Parrish was having a pretty good season when he's been on the field. Jalen Knighton, on the other hand, has yet to get untracked, but they clearly are trying to get him untracked. So the combination of those two, Franklin's averaging 4.4 yards a carry. He's got 194 yards to this point in the season. He does have 5 rushing touchdowns because they've been using him on the goal line, and he's got a really good Pro Football Focus grade. So the reason he's on this list is when you look at those things, you certainly could, while understanding that the coaches are looking for a little bit more explosion at the position, you could certainly make an argument that he should be playing more.
I mean, look, I know you're a master of mathematics and numbers, but Henry Parrish is averaging what he averages because against Bethune, he had 14 carries for 108 yards and 3 of his 4 touchdowns, okay? You take it the Bethune-Cookman game.
Well, wait a minute. A&M, he averaged like 5 yards a carry too. He did a good job against Texas A&M.
A&M, he had 85 yards. He was okay. 16 carries, 85 yards. Like, that's pretty good. I don't disagree with that.
Yeah.
But and then Southern Miss, another team that's just awful. 109 yards. But the point is, his first 3 games and then his last 2 he's played in were totally different. Whereas Thad Franklin, he hasn't gotten that much of a chance. He did have a chance against Middle Tennessee. He did get 15 carries. He did not much with it. 2 touchdowns, but like 2 yards a carry, a little over 2 yards a carry. So not great. But, if you were looking at just yards per carry, I mean, against Bethune, Thad had 9 for 78. Against Southern Miss, 12 for 50 and a touchdown. So, I mean, the reason that I sort of want to see some of these other guys isn't so much that they're better players, which I thought I'd already explained in our various arguments over the last, 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah, but I'm not going to argue this one with you. I mean, you could argue this both ways.
Well, listen, the 5 players on this list aren't necessarily the 5 best players aside from Colby Young. They're not necessarily the 4 best players at their respective positions. You could certainly make an argument Colby Young is based on one game and a quarter. But like I've been saying, I don't think Miami's winning the ACC Coastal. I'm sorry to break it to you, Gary Ferman. I know you still think they're going to win everything and be in the playoffs. I don't think they'll be in the playoffs, Gary. I'm sorry. I think they will be down the road. And that's why I think it's so important to get a game evaluation, and not just a game evaluation of your players, because yes, players can be different people in games versus practices. They lose their heads sometimes in games.
Okay, but if you have a slow running back, you have a slow running back.
Well, of course.
You don't have to see it on. You don't have to see it on Saturday.
These guys all got scholarships at Miami. They're all capable players. But yeah, some.
But he also was the number 5 back to start the season.
But you have to remember, with this coaching staff, and it's something I don't like, and every coaching staff does it because they're smarter than me. But they play the guys who might not be quite as good, but know what they're doing. They're big on.
All coaches are like that.
All coaches are like that because that's what they teach. This is what a coach teaches things in practice for a reason. The guys who do it right, even if they do it, at 90% of the speed of another guy, that's the guy they're going to play. And that's why Weeman Steed starts every game at linebacker, even though he's graded out at 50s or whatever. And you have a guy like Wesley grading out in the 80s. They don't care. If you don't know where to be, like, even though you're beating your man every single time, they're not going to play you. And I think a really good way to sort of get some of these guys past the hump is to have game film that these guys can watch and see, oh, wait, when I didn't do it right, here's what happened, or, oh, when I was out of my gap, even though I beat my guy, they had an explosive gain because I should have been over there. And I think that's so valuable for young guys to see it in a game, because young guys in practice don't get it sometimes. And then the next year when they finally get their chance, which would be next year, right? It's like, oh my gosh, like Jaleel Skinner now knows, man, I dropped a few in practice that didn't really bother me, but now I'm dropping them in games. Like this offseason, I'm going to kick my own butt every single day to make sure I never drop another pass. Whereas if he had never played this year, which he wouldn't have probably if Elijah and Will stayed healthy the whole season, they weren't going to play the guy. Now he knows he has a problem in games. Like a lot of guys think, oh, I just wasn't focusing in practice, but it's just practice. You know how guys are. Like that's, and they think, oh, well, in games in high school, I killed it. I'll still kill it in games in college. He's dropped some in games, which guess what? It's not a bad thing. It's a learning thing, especially now. If it was a season where they're trying to make the playoffs and they lose a game because of it, that's really bad. But to me, right now, it's all about getting better for next year in the future, learning for next year in the future, getting a handle on your roster for next year in the future. Which are the guys that we need to stay? Which are the guys that can develop? Which are the guys that understand the mistake in one game and fix it in the next game? Which are the guys that play better in a game than in practice? Which are the guys that play worse in a game than in practice? You have to evaluate all that, and you have a chance to do it now with a team that's 3-3 that's going nowhere to the bowl game.
If anything, they're playing too many guys, in my opinion.
Well, but you're talking about a whole different animal. You're talking about defensive line. But guys who want to play defensive line, Gary, LT and Daryl Jackson are young guys I want to see play so they can learn from their mistakes. They play 26 reps a game. Like, to me, that's not really pushing the envelope and seeing what they can do and evaluating them thoroughly. Akeem Messenger will be back, I think, next year. He's another guy. It's okay. If anybody who's come, well, if he's gone, he's gone. But you're probably right. But anybody who's coming back next year, to me, like, you've got to figure out, do they need more reps so we can really see what they do, so they can really see what they can do with more reps? Push some guys to their limit if you can, instead of, just sharing reps around, because there's also something to be said for getting in a groove. You bring a guy in and out constantly. Anybody who's played sports knows that can affect you mentally. you could feel a little out of sorts at the start, when you get back in there. It's just the way it is. If you're a defensive lineman going against an offensive lineman consistently, you can watch on film and see how that offensive lineman plays and what he does. But until you've played him a few series in a game, you don't really get a sense for how strong he actually is, how quick he actually is, whether he prefers to, to punch this way or that way or whatever it is. Like, I'm not going to go into specifics, but you get a handle on that. And then as a defensive lineman, you can understand what your skills are to beat that. Whereas if you're coming in and out, it might take till the second half to really feel comfortable. Like, oh, this is the move that's going to work.
Well, I mean, they are buying into the Matt Shodell theory with Inez Cooper. He's been out there a little bit. I think they had him at guard this past game, and they're trying him in different spots, trying to get a read on what his best position is, because he is a guy that seems like he has a bright future. So they're buying into it a little bit, Matt. At least in his case, and he's certainly a guy that we would like to see more of. Another one that I agreed with you on all these, Darryl Porter Jr., who I'm surprised was not starting from day one this season, and he's been getting a lot of burn the last few weeks, and I think he's. I know this past week I really felt like he was making the secondary better, and I think they do need to play him more because the secondary was pretty rough the first half of the season.
I think he was regretting his transfer for a few games there, but I think now he's getting his chance. It'll be interesting. Tyreek Stevenson told us he'll be back. Does that send, Darryl back to the bench? Because Tyreek was playing every single snap.
No, because Darryl would play opposite Tyreek in that situation.
Well, but they've been using DJ, and they didn't bench DJ last game, so we'll see.
I think Tyreek will be back. I don't think he's going to have much of a choice, but to be back. So I do think he will be back.
I meant back for this next game. I didn't mean back for next season.
Oh, okay.
He missed last game.
I think Tyreek will be back for this next game too. Yeah. So that's a better question. Is who where does Darryl Porter fit in with Tyreek back? But right. I think that I agree that they both need to be on the field. I think when you look towards next year, obviously DJ Ivey is not going to be back. And I think that Darryl Porter, with a couple of years of eligibility left, will work his way out there. But he is definitely a guy that we would like to see more of in the second half of the season.
Yeah, for sure.
Another one.
Yeah, and I agree with you. It's like Colby Young. It's a little mysterious. Why wasn't he given more of a chance? He didn't look terrible last game. He looked okay.
I think it took time for him to know what to do, Matt. I mean, I think he got dropped off right before training camp, and he didn't go through spring practice. He didn't go through the off-season workouts, and I think it just took time for all they're doing right now with him is running go routes. He hasn't mastered the whole offense.
I'm talking about who are you talking about? Because I'm talking about
Colby Young.
I'm talking about Darryl Porter.
No, well, you said Colby Young. So
I meant Darryl Porter.
Colby Young was on the list anyway.
Yeah, I meant Darryl Porter. Did I say Colby Young?
Darryl Porter, I don't really.
It's too early in the morning. I meant it was weird that Darryl Porter didn't get more of an opportunity when he came in. Is what I meant.
I mean, we thought Darryl Porter would start opposite Tyreek.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
We thought DJ Ivey would get unseated.
Every coaching staff that's been here loves DJ Ivey. They all love him.
Listen, he does a good job. I mean, look, if he is not matched against a speed receiver that gets him into a foot race, DJ Ivey does a pretty good job.
No, the truth is he brings donuts, bagels and Nova, and stone crabs to the coaches every single day. And that's good on him, like smart.
You pick him up at your house?
Oh, hey, I'm going back out there soon. I'll tell you how it goes. We're going to be heading out at some point here in the next week. So.
Oh, yeah? The boat's back in town.
Well, it's going to be interesting because we've had, a lot of pots that we kept in the water from last year that we just were too lazy to pick up. So we'll. Woohoo! Oh, sweet. Anyway, we'll see A, if they're still there, and B, it's amazing. No bait, sitting there for basically 9-10 months. And it's amazing the amount of stuff that's in these pots.
It finds its way.
If you were nicer, I would have taken a picture of one of them when we grab it. But now that you ran that video, forget it.
No, definitely send us some pictures.
No.
We'll be very curious.
Yeah, maybe.
So anyway, and then another guy that absolutely, I think, will see the field a lot more in the second half of the season, who must see the field a lot more in the second half of the season, is Wesley Besaint, the young linebacker. He is going to be a great football player. You could see it each week. He's flashing more and more and more, and hopefully everybody will be noticing Wesley Besaint quite a bit the second half of the season. All right, so moving on to, let's see, what should we talk about next, Matt? Moving on to some other stories. We also have our midseason report cards continuing, and we take a look at the linebackers and the defensive backs, so you guys can check that out. As I mentioned, we've got the You Bet CaneSport show with Lee Sterling, where we talk a lot about the Duke game. All right, so Matt mentioned that yesterday was Basketball Media Day. So we do have a few basketball stories for you to sink your teeth into today. Dan Radakovich spoke. Didn't really say much of that would really interest you guys, but he did say that they are getting close on the football facilities. Did not really elaborate on what close means. Did not really elaborate very much on the facilities, but we know that it's big dollars and it's going to be a first-class facility the whole way. But he did basically acknowledge that they are moving along with that project. And Matt, that's so critical. They just can't waste too many more months before they put shovels in the ground there, because it's being promised to the recruits, and it's important that the recruits see that ground has been broken on that project.
Well, listen, when they have their grand opening, groundbreaking media event, they better not serve frickin' Publix vegetarian sandwiches, okay? That's all I ask. Just don't do that. Don't do that. One of my favorite parts of yesterday was, and actually I asked Jim Larrañaga this, because we know that they're moving the band and the student section to the visiting side, to the visiting bench to provide more of a.
Dan Radakovich wants to create a little bit more of a hostile atmosphere for opponents.
Right. So I asked Jim Larrañaga, the genesis of that idea, expecting Jim to say, "Oh, I talked it over one of my coaches. I talked it over with my coaches, or one of my coaches who was from somewhere else said, why don't we do this?" But no, it was apparently all Dan Radakovich's idea. And Dan was at a game at some point and said to Jim, "Why is the student section and the band over on your bench where you can't hear anything when you're trying to talk to your team during the timeouts?"
A very legit question.
Right. It's a great question. And Jim's answer, apparently, according to Jim, was, well, there wasn't much of a fan presence, and we wanted it to be nearer our sideline or something weird like that. But good for Dan Radakovich. I love that idea.
Yeah. So Basketball Media Day yesterday. It was interesting. We got a chance to watch both the women's and the men's teams practice. Got to talk to all the players. Talk to Jim Larrañaga. Over the next few weeks, you'll be seeing the byproduct of that. We did a lot of interviews that'll lead up to the start of the season on November the 7th. As for today, we've got a story with Jim Larrañaga, and we've also got 5 takeaways from Basketball Media Day.
Hey, by the way, let me ask you, because there was a pretty good post yesterday, which I think the message boards have actually been really great. So thanks to the fans out there. But the interesting thing, somebody posted this. This is this the one that I was looking for? Yes, D.D. Kane, who is a well-known member. Is that the new thing, Gary? When you have like 1,000 posts from the other site, you become a well-known member on this site now. Anyway.
Well, we moved all their records over.
I know, but it says DD. It says well-known member. Oh yeah, it does show that. Yeah, it shows the number of posts. Look at that.
Yeah,
DD Kane has 912 thumbs up. That's such a coincidence because I have 912 thumbs down. That's unbelievable.
Appropriately so.
The post reads, "This NIL deal is not a good, NIL situation in general is not a good thing for the Canes. Whatever advantage we may have enjoyed initially is gone. We were a one-man program, a guy who is very controversial. Other programs have caught up." And they're talking about the NIL person, obviously, Mr. Ruiz. "My biggest concern is the core competencies of Mario related to recruiting may become irrelevant if it's just a bidding game, who cares how hard and relentlessly he works if it's just a pure auction for services? And
that's a legit concern.
D.D. Kane is stealing my mojo because it's something I had mentioned a long time ago, and I don't know the answer. We're not gonna know the answer. Maybe even on signing day in December, we won't know, because I think this is still something that's not going to really have fully matured NIL stuff for several years, quite honestly. I think people are still trying to figure out who can give money, how much will they give, how consistently will they give. Can we, pile up money until December 1st and then just start distributing it when we know we have how many millions, and we can say, okay, here's who had a great senior season. Here's who had a great senior season. Give them this many million, them that many million, that sort of thing. Or, oh, this person's, committed there. What will it take? How much money do we need? Hey, Nike, let's just say some random Nike owner of the company. I don't know. Hey, random Nike owner of a company, we want this Miami commit. If you want to get, that coach back who you once had, throw 10 million at this kid and we'll get him, Who knows what's going to happen? But that there's going to be shady stuff. This is all illegal. You cannot promise NIL money to anybody until they are enrolled. You certainly can't sign a contract, until they're enrolled with a student athlete per the NCAA rules. So it's still just as bad as the bag game. There's no difference between this and the bag game, except it's a lot more money and it can actually happen, and it's just not immediate, So it makes it much murkier, and I do think it will negate a lot of the hard work that Mario Cristobal, who I consider probably one of the top 5 recruiting head coaches in the country, if not number 1, actually, in terms of just how hard he works. It would be really disheartening if this NIL thing negates all of his hard work.
Yeah. And it really might. But I think Miami will be very competitive in NIL.
Well, that's the key. Boom. That's the key right there.
And we're going to see what happens in December. It would help if they could win out or just lose to Clemson here in the last 6 weeks of the season. No doubt about it. I got 1 or 2 more things to talk about today. But first, in honor of Basketball Media Day that was yesterday, let's hear from our friends at Life Wallet by way of Nigel Pack.
Hi, I'm Nigel Pack, and when I decided to come to Miami, I knew I had to pack, including my Life Wallet. But you know what else I'm going to pack this upcoming season? I'm going to pack the house. But today, I'm going to stand here and make another trade.
The feed to Pack. He throws another. Give it to him. His third from the corner pocket. When he was persistent, Nigel Pack again.
Never leave your home without your Life Wallet. Saving time, saving lives.
Hey, did you see the shooting drills? Were you still there at the men's practice when Pack and Wong were doing their shooting drills, or you might have left?
First of all, that wasn't even Nigel Pack. That was one of those doppelgangers that video. No, it wasn't even him. He was at home resting.
No, listen. I mean, I love Jim Laranaga's shoot. These guys, they were throwing up like 50 shots in succession. It was like watching the NBA 3-point shooting contest. And I mean, it has to be totally exhausting. But the good thing about it is you get used to shooting when you're tired. And he and Wong were doing this together on one of the half courts, and it was just so cool to watch. I mean, there were times they struggled because they were just exhausted, but there were times where they would make like 5 or 6 or 7 in a row, and both those kids can really shoot. But you could see Nigel Pack, when he is zoned in and really focusing on what he's doing, he is a knockdown shooter. And I'm going to tell you who else is knockdown shooters is Haley and Hannah Cavender. I mean, they shoot as well as probably, Wong and Pack. I mean, they really fire the outside shots in. So it was fun, man. It was good to get a glimpse at the basketball team.
Speaking of doppelgangers, do you watch that show Westworld? Have you ever watched that on HBO?
No, I don't. I haven't gotten to that one.
No. Well, it makes you wonder, if this is our true reality, because, the Miami Hurricanes football team certainly should not be as bad as it's been for 20 years. The Miami Hurricanes basketball players apparently hitting shots like they're robots. I mean, in Westworld, they call them hosts. It seems very reminiscent of the kind of fake world that has been built in Westworld. That's all I'm saying, And we need to change the narrative, people. For those of you that watch Westworld, whichever one of you controls the narrative, please change it. I want to be able to have a winning football team next year since it didn't happen this year.
Well, it's not over yet. They could still have a winning record.
That's not what I mean.
I know it's not what you mean. But if the darn refs hadn't thrown that flag on Duke last week, they'd be back in the Coastal too. But
hey, why did you delete Jake Garcia and Ja'Cory Brown from the list of players we wanted to see more of?
Don't be a troublemaker.
That's not right.
Don't be a troublemaker. All right. One other story that I wanted to bring up is we have a story on an Alabama commit in the 2024 class. It's by the name of Jalen Mbakwe. He's a 4-star prospect. He's committed to Alabama, but Miami has not been intimidated by the presence of the Crimson Tide. In fact, the Canes didn't even offer Mbakwe until after he had already committed to Alabama. How about that? Miami's been talking to him a lot, multiple times a week, and the relationship is building. And look, I think there's a decent chance that they get a visit at some point this spring from Mbakwe, and we'll see where that one goes. All right, that's going to do it for Good Morning CaneSport for today. Thank you so much for starting out your day with us once again. Looking forward to seeing so many of you at Hard Rock Stadium tomorrow. It's a big game for the Canes, man. Matt Shodell says Miami by 3 touchdowns.
It's not a big game for the Canes. Let's be clear.
Big game. It is a big game. Every game. When you lose to Middle Tennessee State and you have 3 losses at midseason, no, it's a big game. No, it is, because
I will never say Duke's a big game for the Miami Hurricanes.
I'm saying it's a big game because Duke is better than people think, and Miami must win this game, and they got to win next week.
You're going to make me take a full pill of Losartan this morning, okay?
No, let me tell you something. People are tired of watching these games on Bally Sports, and a lot of people around the country can't even get them. Can't even get Bally Sports. Okay, the Canes fan wants
that's a mitzvah. They should be saying thank you not to have to watch these games.
The Canes fan wants to be able to watch the Canes. Okay, we got to get them back on regular TV, and the only thing that's going to do it is beating Duke and Virginia the next 2 weeks. All right, so let's get it done, guys.
So just to be clear, Gary Ferman says Duke is a big game for the Miami Hurricanes. I want that on the record.
In relation to the season, yes, it is a big game.
You don't need to qualify it. You just say Duke Miami. When you circled the calendar before the year, Duke and Miami, big game. That's what you thought to yourself, right?
No, but I expected this to.
You think every game's a big game? Virginia's a big game. I mean, it's ridiculous. This is not a big game.
You're not hearing me call Virginia a big game, but I just think that these are must wins. They got to win these next 2 weeks. They got to bring some in.
What's not a must win? Which game's not a must win besides Clemson?
As much as anything, it's for the joy of the Canes fan. The Canes fan has been robbed of this season already. Let's be honest, and it's affecting everybody. I mean, we see it. People are just kind of disengaged right now. It hurts Caneswear. It hurts all Canes. It hurts the university. They don't sell as many single game tickets. The way this season started is hurting a lot of people. And at least if they win these next 2 games to get to 5-3, the month of November is interesting for everybody. Okay, people can go tailgate. They can go to Clemson and see Clemson, which is that's a fun experience. Maybe get to a bowl game. We'll see. Maybe there's a couple decent bowl venues on the schedule. I mean, there can be a little bit of a ribbon wrapped around what basically, for the most part, has been a turd the first 6 games of the season.
I mean, Miami most likely will finish 7-5 at this point. Probably the best it'll be is 8-4, which I predicted
is acceptable.
I predicted 8 before the season, but you got to beat FSU and beat everybody else other than Clemson. Like that's not what the team.
You got to actually win a game, Matt. You got to win a game. How about that? How about winning a damn game? All right. So FSU is better this year, supposedly, than people thought. Go beat FSU, okay? Enough of the excuses already. Like
I love your in-depth. I love your in-depth analysis. It's always so revealing.
It's like there's no reason they can't beat. They can't beat Florida State.
The keys to the victory that you just revealed are It's mind blowing. I didn't even think of what you. So beat FSU. That's what we have to do. Just beat FSU.
To lose
just beat
that
FSU.
game.
That's it. It's that easy. Just say it and it
It's
happens.
no different than North Carolina. There's
Because
no reason
you're
to
the
lose
god
all these
from
games.
You're the god from Westworld who can just say beat FSU and it happens. I didn't know you were that person.
I want to see something come of this season. Like, I don't want to see the whole thing become a waste again. Yet another year. Get some momentum going. Win a couple games. Beat Florida State. Go into recruiting in December with at least a semblance of respect and momentum. Don't go in having to explain yourself to people.
Listen,
hoping they'll ignore it.
They will beat Duke easily. They'll beat Virginia easily. And what we're going to see, again, Gary, I believe my eyes. I don't just believe whatever, metallic object is inside your stomach right now. That's not what I'm listening to, okay? What I see in these next two games will tell me if Miami can beat FSU, will tell me if Miami can beat Clemson, will tell me if Miami can beat Pitt, because they have not played well in a single game all year. And if they still win by 3 touchdowns against Duke, but have 8 penalties, struggle in the red zone, defense gives up 3 explosive plays, and they win 45-21 because Duke, sucks and threw 2 interceptions, returned for touchdowns. Like, I'm still going to say Miami's not making improvement.
I think they're going to beat Duke. I think they'll beat Virginia. I think they'll beat Pitt. I think Florida State is the swing game of the season in terms of respectability at all.
Let me tell you something. When you say this, when you say Duke is a must-win, whatever the hell you said, like, to me, Duke, since we'll just focus on the next game, but really Duke and Virginia, to me, they're going to win. Both those teams are not good. I don't care that Duke played.
You would have said the same thing about Middle Tennessee.
Whatever. I understand.
You got to show up and play.
If you let me finish, well, that's my point, right? So how do they play? How do they play when they win? They're not going to lose. How do they play when they win? That's the key. And that'll tell you these last 4 games that are really tough, whether it just goes back to what we saw against halfway decent teams. Again, Middle Tennessee, you keep bringing up, it was a one-off, Gary. They were beaten down mentally and physically off Texas A&M. That was not a game we should even discuss as, that's the same team. We were never that team, okay? That was a one-off. What we saw against Texas A&M was this team. What we saw against North Carolina, that's this team. What we saw against Southern Miss and this last game, that's this team. This team is far from perfect. This team is not very good, but this team is talented enough, despite its mistakes, despite its lack of depth, to play with everybody, probably except Clemson. That remains on the schedule. But if they don't play well these next 2 games, it's red flag, red flag, red flag, just like you go on a date. Well, we don't go on dates anymore. Our wives wouldn't like that.
And then it's
like when you go on a date. It's like when you go on a date and somebody asks, somebody orders a Publix sandwich with just lettuce, tomato, and onion and hold everything else. Like, that's a red flag, man. And like, if we keep seeing these red flags pop up game after game, 1 game it's penalties, 1 game the quarterback can't complete a pass. It's always something. Red zone defense. Red zone offense. Big plays given up by the defense. Like, it's always something cropping up. Until those things stop cropping up and they play a game against even a bad team but look good doing it, meaning mistakes aren't happening, execution is good, passes are on target, making the right reads, filling the right gaps, not busting all the time. Like, when that starts happening,
eliminating penalties.
Right. And hopefully that'll be these next 2 games. Yeah, penalties.
I don't have to say I would bench you.
Right. I never said I was going to bench anyone. I said, let's play everybody. And that included Jake Garcia, because guess what? Quarterback's also a position just like linebacker. People freak out. Why would you sit the quarterback for a game? I understand it's a special position, but like, if Jake Garcia is going to transfer, which I keep hearing he will if Tyler comes back, like, I'd like to know what he is. They have never given him once a full week of first team reps the entire time he's been at the University of Miami. They've never once prepared him like a starter for a game at the University of Miami, other than when he split time for 1 game last year against whoever. Like, I'm just saying, I'm not against it. It was an idea. People hate my idea. Well, people hate all my ideas. So this is no different. But I just want to know what you got. I would start Jake against Virginia. I would give him a full week of first team reps against Virginia. I would let Tyler hey, Tyler, you watch, you learn.
They gotta go to work, man. They got to go to work. You can't get off on this Jake Garcia tangent.
Listen,
they got to go to work.
God forbid,
they're
Gary.
sitting in the parking lot at their office buildings right now. They have to go inside. You must let everybody go. Okay? You good?
People, listen. It's just funny how some people are like, give Jake Garcia a chance, but there's fewer and fewer of them. When Tyler was terrible, everybody was like, give Jake a chance. Tyler has 2 good games against terrible defenses, and he looks great doing it, by the way. And Tyler is a great quarterback, but all of a sudden you don't hear the Jake Garcia noise. I'm not like that. Like, I'm not going to let a game or two change my whole philosophy on what I think should be done when the team's sitting at 3-3 and you got to make decisions for next year on people. That's just me. I'm a crazy person.
All right. Now it's really time to go to work. For Matt Shodell, I'm Gary Ferman. Thank you so much for joining us again this morning. We'll see you Monday on this show. We'll see you at the stadium Saturday. After the game on Saturday, we will have the CaneSport.com post-game show right here. Hope many of you will be able to join us for that. Have a great day, everybody.